Hi everyone, we are back to the Gutshot podcast, and with me again today, our partner Syed Akbar.
Good morning.
We have for this episode we are going to go even more regional domestic, considering the elections that are gonna come up within the next 2 weeks, or something like that.
29th of November.
November, where we're going to have the Sabah elections that will be carried out, and it's going to be it's a very interesting, maybe probably will be the bellwether for Malaysia. I personally do not know much about our domestic politics, to be frank. I am more interested of policies and what we do for the people, and looking at economics of this country. However, it all starts at the ballot box. And in this stance, I'm going to hand it over to Syed to give us the quick rundown of, maybe we start with so many parties that are going to be involved, and how do you see this going to play out? Syed?
Okay.
Take on.
All right. I think no one can claim to be an expert on so many parties in Sabah, especially the Malaya people like us.
Oh yeah, we forgot about that. Yeah, we are Malaya people.
We are total strangers. We don't understand all the dynamics and what's happening on the ground. But I see there are major similarities, major undercurrents, and major the way how the politics is going on in Sabah now is very similar to what is happening in on the peninsula.
Really?
In Malaya.
You feel that way?
Yeah, let me explain.
Okay.
Okay, first of all, it is a very crowded contest, which is on the 29th of November, 8 days away. I have a list of the parties that are contesting in front of me here, but I'm not going to read them because it's too many. I think it's like over 20 parties, and some of them are coalitions. But there are 73 seats, state seats, up for grabs.
Right.
In this next state election, and the 17th Sabah State Election, and there are 596 candidates vying for the 73 seats. That is an average of more than 6 candidates per seat.
Per seat.
Actually, more than that. 596 candidates in total. The interesting thing is that in some of the seats, so the average number of contestants per seat is 6 people, 6 cornered fights in every seat minimum. You have a number of seats where there are 12 contestants, 13 contestants. I think there's one that's 14 also. And the 8s and 9s, there are many, So it is a very jumbled up situation. Everybody is trying to run and try their luck. Actually trying their luck. There are also theories that some of these people are actually, there are arrangements among various parties, and some may be fronting for others and things like that. Election pacts and all that.
Right.
So, but those are conspiracy theories. Bottom line is there are 596 candidates, so it's a very crowded field. I have some views why it is so crowded. Why? Okay, the other thing is 73 seats. Only one party Warisan, is fielding candidates in all the 73 seats. There's another party called Parti Impian Sabah, which is fielding 72 candidates. I don't know why they didn't go for the full 73. The rest are all, below. They are contesting like 50 over seats and things like that. However, for the first time, we have 74 independent candidates. That means the single largest block of contestants for the 73 seats are independents. 74 independents are trying their hand at winning seats as independents. why is this happening? My view is that this is where I say this is reflective of the situation on the peninsula
Okay.
in Malaya,
Right.
because the way politics has evolved in this country over the last how many years, we find that basically politics in Sabah, just like politics in the peninsula, is a bit like a headless chicken. There's no one can detect any strong force, any clear cut direction in the politics of the country and in the politics of Sabah. That is why I feel that so many people feel that they are better suited to run for elections and to provide leadership to Sabah, because they don't see that leadership coming from the established or the existing or the incumbent political parties. People are not confident.
What about on the opposition side?
Same thing. See, if you have a well-entrenched political parties, government or opposition, would you expect 74 independents to go against them and risk their deposit and all their investment in time and energy? They will lose hands down. But so many people are willing to contest the elections as independents, as well as the dozens of parties that are putting up candidates. It's a free for all, because they honestly feel that there is no single party or coalition which can shut them out.
Can I ask you a quick
Yeah,
question
yeah,
and
go ahead.
interject? Because you've been, you are one of the longest commentator of domestic politics that I know of. That's, to be honest, I feel the most professional and credible of all. Sorry to angkat my friend lah. Okay. But if you say like that these guys, all these various new parties, independents, basically are bubbling up now. There have always been independents or many parties in Sabah. Sabah's been quite unique in that sense, right?
But you've never had 596 candidates. For example, in 2020, there were 447 candidates. Yeah, that's right. In the 2020 election, there were 447 candidates for 73 seats. Now we got 596, make it 600. That's more than 153, about 153 more candidates this for this election than before.
Wow, that's a jump.
It's a huge jump. That's why I'm saying people in Sabah, just like people here, feel that let's try and do something for ourselves. Let's bring some change by ourselves, because all the existing political parties, both sides, or how many sides there are of the fence in Sabah, or just like in Peninsula, they're not delivering the goods. So they are feeling that, and they can read the ground. That means that they can also read the ground. Most importantly, they can read the ground that support from the voter, from the public in Sabah, you cannot identify, you cannot with certainty, you cannot say that this party has the support of the majority of voters. You don't see that anymore. It's like tossed salad, tossed salad.
Yeah, I know.
you throw in the carrots, the lettuce, the tomato,
jumble it up.
and you just jumble it up. You just, it's a mixed bag. You see.
Yeah.
So they cannot see any one clear cut winner or leader or decisive political leadership in the state that can swing the elections. There are some years in the past, that this party will carry the elections. You're quite sure. So in that kind of situation, the independents, the smaller parties, they'll be more careful about whether do they want to go ahead against some juggernaut. But that situation does not exist in Sabah anymore. Everybody now thinks that they are the better person to run for elections, because they can see that there is no, on the ground level, grassroots, the voter has not made up his mind, or the voter doesn't have a clear-cut preference. So why not we give it a try? That's why I see the field is so crowded.
That's an interesting observation, because one of the things that I thought that permeated in the last general election when there were independents coming up, at least that's overall general election, right? Was that the ground was saying like independents cannot form government, therefore cannot provide change.
Well, in on the peninsula at the last elections in 2022, no single party or group could win the general elections. Before the outcome of the elections, people were already saying it was going to be a hung parliament. I was saying it before.
Right.
But nevertheless, there were parties like the DAP, the Perikatan people, even the PAS. We knew that they would win X number of seats, like DAP. A lot of people were saying that they would do 40 or better, or they would maintain their position, which they did. And PAS also, that they would maintain their position, maybe plus or minus, which they did. But insufficient to form government. But nevertheless, they have strength in those seats which they have traditionally been winning in the past, and like they have held on to some of those seats for some time. But the situation in Sabah now has changed a lot. There are a few people, like for example Shafi Abdal in Warisan. I think he will retain his seat, and there are a few others, the stalwarts of Sabah politics. Yes, they will. Even what's his name, Radin Mokhtar. I think he will retain his seat in Kinabatangan or something like that, or in the east. But other than that, the regular run-of-the-mill members of parliament or members of the state assembly, I think they are in for a challenge. They will be facing a serious challenge. So we have to see what is the outcome. No one is going to predict who's going to win. It's very difficult.
Really?
In Sabah, yeah.
Even at the level of cabinet, or their cabinet ministers.
Yeah, correct. State seats very difficult now. It's a really toss-up situation in Sabah. We really do not know what's going to happen on the 29th of November, and that's only the beginning, because somebody has to form the government, no matter what's the situation. Someone has to win enough seats to be the single largest party or the single largest coalition. If a party can win, there are 73 seats, so if they win 37 seats, of course they can form the government,
right?
Or they may have to form coalitions, and if the wind blows in the right direction or wrong direction, you may end up with another coalition government made up of diverse and disagreeable parties being forced to work together, which has happened in the last general elections, and which will lead to coalition government, which will lead to weak government.
Well, I mean, this has been the pattern throughout Malaysia, especially after BN was taken out in the in the last government they held, which is how many years ago?
2018.
2018, right?
They lost 2018.
Yeah. So they were in power for 60 years, I think. So the fact on the ground seems to be that coalition governments are the one to stay from here on. I don't see either, from the limited knowledge that I mean, everything is about building coalitions, isn't it, Syed? How do you see moving forward then?
But I think the politicians, I've said this in the previous podcast when we spoke about Malaysian politics.
Right.
I honestly feel the politicians, they are totally cut off from the reality on the ground, or they are fully aware, but they still do not want to make any changes. You see, the situation in Sabah now is reflective of what has been happening in the politics of the country since 2008. 2008, the ruling coalition, which was ruling for a long time, lost their 2/3 majority, which is a major earthquake in Malaysian politics. 2008, 2013, the ruling coalition at the federal level, Barisan Nasional, they lost further. They lost more seats, and finally 2018 they were kicked out. They lost the elections. And then what happened was in 2008, which I have said this before, and I will not tire of repeating it because I hope the politicians are listening. 2008 they lost a 2/3 majority. They did not make a dot of a change in the policies, which caused them to lose the 2/3 majority. It went into 2013, they lost more political power. Again, they did not make a single change in how to do things, in policy making, none. They got kicked out in 2018, and the new government that came in, led by Dr. Mahathir and the PH at that time, Pakatan Harapan, they too didn't make a single change in policies that had caused the BN government being kicked out after 63 years. Not a single policy was changed. And then the Prime Minister lost his position, Dr. Mahathir, replaced by another Prime Minister, also taken out after a year, replaced by another Prime Minister, also taken out, lost the elections. So none of them made any changes. And then in 2022, to me, the most defining election, 2022, everybody lost. Not a single party won because they did not make any change in the policies. The same policies carried through. We ended up with a hung parliament. So the politics, and then now we are 3 years into the new government, and we cannot say that the government is in a very solid position politically, vis-a-vis voter support. The same thing has happened in Sabah now. There has been no change in the policies in Sabah. Whether it was the present government or the previous government, or before that was the UMNO government, the Barisan government, and all that. Although the governments has changed, but the policies have not changed.
Well,
as far as the people are concerned, the people who voted against the Barisan National policies in 2008, 2018, 2013, 2018, and 2022 are the same people who also have given a mixed bag of results in Sabah in 2020 and 2022, and now we're going to 2025, November 29th. The people will not give their wholehearted support to any one particular party or coalition. The politicians don't seem to realize that. The people don't see any difference.
Let me ask you this then. I mean, let me do a pushback. Okay, let me do a pushback. I mean, this current government, at least state government, is probably making the 40% oil money as their main agenda with respect to Sabah, for Sabahans, so to speak, or going back to their assertions on MA63. Does that not be seen as a change?
Well, the 40% oil money, I don't know. It's really difficult to say because, well, first of all, that money has not started flowing yet. So of course they're making hay. They're going to town with it because the elections are coming up.
Right.
So of course it is very fantastic political capital. You can hawk this thing up and down the state, left and right. This everybody in Sabah is talking about this 40%. So it is like low hanging fruit. If you're running for a state seat in Sabah now, regardless of which party you belong to, they're all banging on this 40% oil royalty issue.
So that becomes a leveling factor.
Everyone is taking ownership of the 40% oil revenue issue in Sabah.
Okay.
The opposition, those who are incumbents, everybody is taking ownership, like they are the champions of the 40% oil revenue issue. It is low hanging fruit, but they have a way to go. But it will sell now. This is the best time to hawk this thing, this 40% oil revenue. Whether after the event, after it is, let's say it starts to flow, or after the oil revenue start coming in, what will happen in the future? I think we can discuss a bit more later, because we really don't know how that will really change the plight or the future of the ordinary Sabahan people. That is yet to be seen lah. But for the time being, there's 8 more days left. It's fantastic political capital, huh? But everybody is using it. The opposition, the incumbent, or the independents. Everyone is using 40% oil revenue on their platforms. So when everybody is selling the same thing, where do the votes go? Normally in elections,
That's true.
One
What's the
party,
differentiator?
one party will have a certain platform. They will like, for example, our religious party. They'll always sell religion. When time for election time comes, they will play the religion song. You have the other party who will not play the religion song. They will play like, we are promising development, progress, this kind of stuff. So it's clearly black and white. So people can decide either this or that. I mean, there's some people who think like that. Imagine all the parties in Malaysia talk religion, same religion. They all want to talk about Islam. So how does a voter choose? So in Sabah now, all the parties, all the candidates, independent candidates, they're all using the 40% oil revenue as though it is their proprietary platform, political platform. So I think the Sabah voter will have to decide.
So then the question becomes, actually you're right. If that's the case, then okay. If that's the case, then the question comes to the voter is that what's the differentiator? Isn't it? Because everything being equal on that side, what do you offer that is different than the other candidate or the other group?
I hope they are good-looking candidates, which can make a difference.
Well, that goes back to actually how the people on the ground feels, isn't it? In terms of their well-being, in terms of how they see the future is going to be better for them. Because if you ask me, what's so interesting that you brought up? You sort of like inserted the religion part. I really hope that Sabah stays the way I used to know it when I was working for Shell. I mean, Sabah Sarawak, I was personally over there, Sarawak especially, for 8 years. And my first company, actually, Syed, would you believe that? Actually, when I was doing broadcast engineering, that was my first company that I started. Broadcast engineering. People don't know that. A lot of people don't know that. Okay, I was doing very well. And actually, I think 8 out of 10 of my engineers were all Sabahans.
Right.
What I found was they were very hardworking and they were smart. And, and they don't have, all this, they were more about the work they have to figure out today. So I hope that stays the same because that's the potential of the people, and I don't know. I mean, I think you're right. What's the per capita GDP right now in Sabah? What are we looking at? I mean, let's look at the people and what what would their aspiration be?
Okay, let's
look at that. Let's
talk some economics.
Yeah, let's talk some economics.
You see, Sabah. You see, let's go back to this oil revenue thing. Oil revenue. Right. Sabah, for such a wealthy and asset-rich, natural resource endowed state. Sabah, out of the 13 states in the country, and the two federal territories. If you take KL and Putrajaya as one, and Labuan as the second one. Out of these 15 areas, 13 states and 2 federal territories, Sabah's GDP is number 12 or 13, only I think Perlis, Kedah and Kelantan are poorer than Sabah. The hardcore the Malay belt states, the so-called religious belt states, only Perlis, Kedah and Kelantan are poorer than Sabah. Sabah is quite low down in the ranking of GDP as well as per capita GDP. And this has been the situation in Sabah for I don't know, since forever, you know. And now there is a promise of sharing this 40% oil revenue. I'm a skeptic of this kind of things, because
Why is that?
we do not know if okay, let's say 40% of oil revenue flows into Sabah. The per capita GDP of Sabahans is about 30,000 ringgit now. 5 years ago, it was like 24,000 plus ringgit. So it has grown a little bit. But can we seriously expect that if the oil revenue is increased to 40%, the what do you call this? The oil royalties that go into Sabah is becomes 40%. Will the Sabahans be 40% wealthier, or the state of Sabah will be 40% richer? Which is actually a ridiculous statement to make, because first of all, it doesn't work that way. The point I'm trying to make is that, will the extra oil revenues have that big an impact on the ordinary Sabahan? There's a reason why I have this. I'm very skeptical. We found out that every year, or for this year, the government in the budget allocation, Sabah's allocation was 17 billion ringgit. Sabah's allocation, I think for this year, and I think in the previous years they also get the allocations in the teens of billions. Like it will be 17, 16, 15 billion, whatever. I'm sure they get sufficient funds. Where has all that money gone to? That's a lot of money, you know. Why is Sabah still at the lower rungs of the GDP ladder in terms of GDP, state GDP, and especially per capita GDP? They are number 13, quite low down the rung. So if you pump in an extra 40% of oil revenue, is it going to boost up the per capita GDP of the Sabahans on a one-to-one basis? I do not know. Like, something is yet to be seen. As I said, a lot of money has already been allocated to Sabah every year, just like it has for the other states too. And yet, the performance of the economy and the situation of the people in Sabah, their per capita GDP is quite low down the rung when compared to other states in Malaysia. So I don't see an immediate boost in the welfare of the ordinary Sabahan. It's yet to be seen with all this new oil money that is being promised. But I can assure you, if you have 40% extra oil revenue flowing into Sabah, I think over the next few years we may see a few new billionaires being created. That could happen, because it's a lot of money flowing in. But whether it filters down to the people on the ground level is yet to be seen. You see, the GDP figures, and there's something else that can boost it up easily. They high impact projects.
Yeah.
If, let's say, the government builds some huge project somewhere in the state, it will immediately boost the GDP of the state as well as the per capita, because per capita is an average. But if you look at the people on the ground, in the towns and villages left and right of these high impact projects, their economic situation may be the same or no better than what it was before, you see. So whether all this extra cash that is going in will be used in such a manner that it creates more wealth in the state, across the state. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I got it.
Across the state, and increases the output and the productivity, creates more opportunities, gets people into the economy, at a higher level. Then you will see improvements and a better situation as far as incomes, per capita GDP, and the state GDP. The GDP will be more organically distributed throughout the state, not just a high impact project here and a high impact project there. The people on the ground must see a change, positive improvement in their lives, economically in their lives. So this is something that is yet to be seen. So I'm skeptical.
I got some feedback as well. I think what we can do on this, just a slight divergent. We should do a segment. What would we do if we were prime minister? and maybe give some ideas for the politicians. If you think about what you just said, right? Think about this. I think Sabah was also the big. I don't know whether they were the bigger one or whether it was Sarawak which had a bigger timber economy at one point when timber was the thing, right? It was so much wealth that was that timber gave the state, and that was totally state revenue, if I'm not mistaken, right? That alone at that initial stage should have made Sabah at a certain level, way beyond at least half of the states, at least I would say half of the states in Malaysia, right? And then you add oil and gas, even with the shares in royalty and all that, that will put it up a lot more. And I think it's the type of policies that are implemented. If you ask me, when you talk about organic growth, think about this, Syed.
Mm-hmm.
There are two things or three things in Sabah or in any vast network of hard-to-reach population sector that one looks at. If you want to talk about organic for the short term and for the long term, that I would implement. Okay, can you imagine if I allocate the most of my my budget to building of high quality schools from primary to secondary, high quality teachers from primary to secondary? One, I dot everywhere in the state. Two, an infrastructure of road networks and that allows for commerce to be moved around just within the state itself. Okay? I do think the government does look at that. I mean, from what I've read recently. But the other thing that I would add is actually energy. Energy needs to be cheap. Energy needs to be fully available. So you don't have brownouts and you don't have blackouts, and energy is available everywhere.
Well,
that's a lot of money to be spent on the ground,
but
that actually your people on the ground could be participating in an organic economy.
But you see, the reality is no matter what happens at the elections, no matter how the outcome of the elections, no matter what the results of the elections, the politicians seem to be happy regardless of the outcomes. They seem to get their benefits no matter what is the outcome, even without making any changes in policy or even without doing any of those things that you are saying. They seem to be happy. So for them it is like, why go the extra mile when our position is safeguarded or well guarded? This is the problem. The politicians do not seem to pay any price. There's no cost to them, even when they don't have, they can't move the society forward. They seem to end up being the happy grasshoppers, no matter what the outcome. There's a couple of more points. I've been reading up a little bit on, following the campaigns in Sabah.
Yeah, please.
It's the heat of the campaigning now.
Yeah.
So as usual, all the promises are being made. This promise, that promise. So I picked up on two. There is one person who he's of course is running in the elections. He said that if his party is returned to power, they will come up with a special welfare program for those who are 60 years and above, senior citizens. Why didn't you do something like that over the last 3 years or 5 years? Why suddenly? And then it's not clear what exactly he meant by this assistance for those above 60. Because even now, there are various assistance and welfare programs, not just for those above 60, for anyone who is the lower income groups. There are quite a few programs. We have them. They've been there for a while. So is he promising something that is already available, or because there was no details given? So these are all fishing for votes kind of promises, which never work. The other one, the second promise that I heard, this by the politician, was even more a bit more fantastic. He said that if his party wins the election, they will give special assistance for first-time home buyers, financial assistance to pay that 10% deposit when you buy a house. When you buy a house, you got to pay a deposit. You see, this is a completely unworkable suggestion. First of all, if a person cannot afford to pay the 10% deposit to buy a house, to buy a car, to buy a motorbike, it is most likely they will not be able to afford to pay the monthly installments. So this is a non-starter. But before that, if a person needs assistance to pay the 10% deposit to buy a house, he won't qualify for the bank loan, because the bank will do a financial background check. When the bank finds out that you had to need assistance to pay the 10% deposit, the bank will know there's no way you can pay the monthly installment. The bank will not give you that loan. I think any person with half common sense will understand this. Yet this person made this promise in the campaign. It's not going to happen. But I think the idea is just to fish for votes, to make promises.
Let me put it this way. That was actually that promise. If you ask me, I don't know who made that promise for that matter. But I know that actually the Kamala Harris made that promise in her last election campaign, which she and I said I already said that it which is they will help out on the but you asked me, okay,
let me finish this point.
Finish that point.
There's a couple of things here, you see, but you see, this kind of behavior, this is not in Sabah alone, it's anywhere in Malaysia. This is quite, it's par for the course in Malaysia,
everywhere.
Because do you remember that in 2018, when the BN government lost, the Pakatan Harapan under Dr. Mahathir, they came out with this fantastic manifesto. I was involved with them at that time, so the manifesto was a big thing, and it helped us to win the elections. But then after the elections were won, Dr. Mahathir became Prime Minister 2.0. There was no change in the policies, except for the GST was abolished immediately. The Sedition Act was put in the cold storage for a few weeks, and then they brought it back. The only thing that they abolished was the GST. Other than that, there was no change in policy, and none of the promises made in that manifesto were delivered. And then Dr. Mahathir made this, this nuclear explosion, earthquake kind of a scale 8 on the Richter kind of a statement. He said it's just a manifesto.
It's just a manifesto.
He actually said that.
Yeah.
He actually said that.
Right.
Meaning that, it's just
it means nothing.
It means nothing.
Yeah.
So you see, this is the how do you pronounce this word? The Malayas, and Malais.
I wonder where that word came from.
This is the thing that is buggering politics and politicians in this country. They just make promises and with no real intention of keeping to what they say. Now, there's a reason why I'm going to close my point on this one. there's a bigger picture behind this. Basically, they want the people to stand in line to receive handouts. That means you stick out your hand and I'll give you some money, I'll give you something. Basically, I'll give you charity. Because they do not know how to move the people to stand on their own feet, to be, progressive, productive, competitive. They do not know. The politicians do not know. So to them, what are they going to do for the people? What in their worldview, what is good for the people? Okay, here's some charity for you. I'm going to give you some money to pay your deposit, 10% deposit. I'm going to give you some assistance if you're 60 years old. They have this idea that is what good politics is, to give charity, to make beggars out of the people. The more people beg, they're happy. And here's the final cut, the biggest rub. They give money to the people that belongs to the people.
Yeah.
It's our money.
It's sad, isn't it?
It's taxpayers' funds. It's public funds. You give back to the people what is theirs in the first place, and you feel that you've done a good job. So this is a problem in the country, in Sabah, in the peninsula. This is why UMNO lost the 2/3 majority 2008. They lost the elections in 2018. Why there was a hung parliament in 2022, and why there's going to be a chaotic outcome of the Sabah elections. The politicians just do not know what to do to move the country, the economy, the society, the individual citizens forward. They seem to excel at, it's okay, I'll get some money and I'll give you some in your hand. I'll give you some handouts. And it is from your own money, public funds. This is what seems to be their approach towards governing and administrating our country, our society, unfortunately.
That's why are you making me depressed in the morning? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm a policy guy. I mean, I've been. It's you and I. We've been in the corporate sector, multinational. We build business. And I think it's about time. Elon Musk said one thing. I think Elon was the one who said this, that the ultimate business is the government. The problem is this, if you ask me, then to continue his statement, is that we really need to have real business way of looking at things in order to run the government. And if you ask, and it goes back to when you put, how do I make the people on the ground feel better, is to get them jobs. How do I get them jobs? Is to have organic growth on things that will impact on the medium term and the long term benefit for the people. Now, if you set up schools immediately, I tell you, if I allocate, let's say, 10-15% of the budget for capital expenditure of building new schools and actually upgrading schools to become top-notch, all right? I mean, I don't understand. I'll just give you an example, right? I was in Form 4, Form 5. I was in what we used to call Jenan, Sekolah Menengah Sultan Abdul Halim. All right, it was the top school in up north, right? Fully boarding school. Teachers were top notch, facilities were top notch. The science lab was unimaginably good. Why can't every school in the country be like that? Imagine if we spend that on science and mathematics and English education instead of corralling our people to actually hafal, memorize one book on a daily basis. Okay? if we just build this, do you know how many billions you're going to get construction worker? Don't import construction worker from India and Pakistan and Bangladesh or Indonesia. Our people can do the job, you know. And then if you don't have suppression of immigration, not suppression, if we don't have suppression of worker wages by importing immigration, then they don't mind to work like that and gain skill, you know. There's skill to be made in terms of building buildings, right? People get job, people learn a skill, people can move forward, right? And you keep on building it. That's just one subsector.
I think you have to throw in a very big inshallah there, you know. God willing.
Just one.
But I...
And 12 years down the road, all your children are going to be way smarter, can compete, you know.
If I can...
Please.
Well, if I can share a message with the people of Sabah, the voters in Sabah, as I said, I'm very skeptical because I've seen the politics of the last 20, 30 years. There's not going to be much change in Sabah even after these elections. It's going to be the same. It's going to be the same.
Oh, for that matter, for the whole country, I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, same old.
So I hope what we're talking here will change.
The politicians will just make promises, and they will just want to give you handouts from your own money, and a little of it. If 40% oil revenue flows into Sabah, that will be billions. They will take some of it and will give handouts to the people. A substantial chunk may go into this, you know, high impact projects and things like that. Some people will get wealthy, but I don't think there will be any real change in Sabah because we have not seen the change in the last how many years in Sabah. As I said, the government says that the allocation for Sabah was 17 billion ringgit for this year. That's a lot of money. You don't have to harp so much about the 40% oil revenue. I'm not saying that they should not. If it's their right, it's their right. But what I'm saying is, what happened to the 17 billion that is being spent every year? That is a lot of money. If that is well spent, you know, and every ringgit that is spent is accounted for, you know, and properly for worthwhile and useful projects that create wealth, that generate a good return on investment, perhaps the Sabahans will be in a much better off position today than sitting at the number 13 or number 12 or 13 rung in GDP in the country compared to the other states. So I don't see that change coming even after these elections.
Are you not being overly pessimistic?
It's going to be a long shot unless some leader or some politician really can turn things upside down and topsy-turvy and move the entire community, the Sabahan people. There are about 4 million people in Sabah now. Focus on the people. What you are talking about, education and all these things, is what do you call this?
Manpower,
manpower capital, manpower development. That is critical, you know. They should do that. But also you need policies, economic policies and other policies in the state which introduce growth on its own, organic. If you always depend on the government to be there to do things, then you are limited by so many things. You are limited by the politics, the politicians. The next election is 2 years, 3 years, 4 years away. And you're also limited by the amount of money you can get because taxpayer funds is very limited. But if you open up economic policy to hook into the free market, open market system, then the sky is the limit. It's beyond the skies because you don't need as much money when you let market forces play a bigger role in your economy. The capital will come in by itself. Organization will happen by itself because just like water finds its own level, entrepreneurs and capitals will flow where there is opportunity. So you also need good policy, economic policy, which is designed not to stifle and put up barriers to economic growth, but creates opportunities. You see, the Sabah is a producer of palm oil. They have vast acreage of oil palm plantation. The oil palm trees do not care who is the owner. As long as the sun shines, there is rain, the soil is good or is sufficient, there's fertilizer, it will produce its fruit. That's called economic output. Then if you interfere in that natural process of the plant, by putting regulations, by insisting on this, on that, so many things, you are going to affect the output of oil palm trees, basically, which left alone to itself with some care, it will provide this output. The politicians screw this up. This is where the intervention in their policies, excessive government intervention, excessive control, regulation, creates problems. Bottom line is, that tree doesn't produce the maximum.
I tell you one thing though, that I think whomever and I mean whatever the government, there is something that come to my mind with respect to Sabah and the evolution of the oil and gas sector in Malaysia, right? With more autonomy, especially with the state government that the state government has, I think the state government has got an opportunity. Whilst I would say this, one of my biggest concern with the fragmentation of the oil economy in Malaysia, that makes unit cost production higher. Okay, let me be very frank in terms of how I look at the oil economy. Number one. However, that also frees you at state level to actually make wise decision, quicker decision, in order to actually allocate that capital, deregulate or do planning for the private sector to participate, like what you just said, make it organic in terms of capitalism itself. And I think I've seen actually this government, at least I can see what's happening, that they are attempting to do that. I don't know how far they will get there, but I think the opportunity for the state itself to actually become the gas capital of Malaysia is very high.
Donald Trump's drill baby drill.
Drill baby drill.
That's what we need. Just let the players in the industry decide how best to go about doing it, and let them take the risk. This is market risk. If, as you say, the oil company feels that they can do something there, they can drill for oil and gas and they can make some money out of it, let them do it.
Yeah, I think our regulation in Malaysia is too, not just regulation, a lot of the rules are extremely, built one upon another, that it makes it very difficult for people to invest. That's another thing I've seen over the years. So if you deregulate a lot more and actually you make focus, I do not understand for the life of me. All right, I think people should actually read beyond the mainstream and understand the so-called what has been taught by the mainstream as the science. All right, I'll tell you something. Focus on what is free underneath our ground and our sea, okay, and actually maximize its utilization.
The politicians are messing things up. You see, for example, affirmative action. Affirmative action does not mean that you cannot level the playing field. Affirmative action is lowering the barriers for certain groups who are disadvantaged, so that they can also participate. But you don't tilt the table and everybody slides off.
Buddy,
that's what is happening now.
I do beg to differ on how I see affirmative action. Okay, I see affirmative action at the point of two things. Okay, maybe three when you get to adulthood. But two things actually is the real thing that you need to do with affirmative action. One is level the playing field on education, which means that you don't stop other people from getting education. You provide education to everyone at the highest level, okay, so that they can compete. Second, and that goes to what I just said about schooling. The second part is actually to ensure that there are no discrimination at employment and upon employment. It's very different than saying I'm going to lower this one, because once I've given you education, you're on your own. I, as a country, want the best people to actually be in the employment, and I believe that actually once you have prepared them, they're ready to go. You know, that to me is what is needed: equal opportunity.
Because if you interfere too much, if the playing field is not level and there's too much is over-regulation, the bottom line is natural resource. You don't maximize the output. Economic activity, you don't maximize the output. Everything is there is a barrier. Doesn't reach its optimum potential or maximum potential, and then everybody suffers.
Yeah.
The government doesn't realize that the government runs on tax collection revenue. The government has a stake in the oil revenue, the dividends from the oil company, but that will not last forever. Even now, that is it's a dicey situation, especially when the oil price drops. Ultimately, government administration and all the government's activities runs on tax collection, tax revenue. And the more economic activity you have in the country, the more revenue you collect.
Yeah.
Tax, especially corporate taxes. So the more taxes that you collect, the more you are able to help the people. The more you help the people, the more votes you get at the elections. They don't seem to understand this easy. They can't connect the dots,
Yeah.
They cannot connect the dots. Somehow they feel that I'm going to interfere in this economic activity part. I'm going to regulate it. Let's not talk about the monopolies and oligopolies. Even in Sabah, some people can get concessions at lightning speed than other people. So all these things interfere with economic activity in the country, and ultimately it also affects the government's revenue collection, tax collection. When the government cannot collect as much revenue as it should, if there were strong market forces operating, of course the government cannot spend as much money on doing good things for the people, as a result of which they lose elections. They can't seem to connect these dots. The politicians cannot seem to
Syed,
understand.
I just
They'll poke themselves in both eyes, and then expect to be able to walk on a straight line. They're walking into the wall.
Syed, I think I've said this before. I find that we Malaysians actually are very maverick people, because we have had to deal with a lot of barriers in order to overcome. There is the government doesn't provide us cookie cutter solution, all right, unless you want to be one of the network, so to speak, So we've had to overcome all this. So, I looked at, even when I talk back about my experience when I was working for 8 years. I was with Sarawak Shell and Sabah Shell. At that time, it was called Sarawak Shell / Sabah Shell, company. And and I had my stint in Labuan. And then, as I said, there must be a reason why. You think about it. There must be a reason why that I end up with 8 out of 10 engineers being Sabahans. Okay? And the reason is because their education were focused on what matters. Okay? And they were good. And we were competing against Singapore companies. Let me tell you, we were competing against Singapore companies mainly because there were no design broadcast companies in Malaysia. I don't know, these days, because the broadcast industries has completely changed, right? And I have left that industry a long time ago. So people in Sabah has got, actually, if you ask me, have got an advantage compared to everybody else in terms of their capacity to move forward. So I just hope that
Well, you know,
that politicians realize this.
oil and gas. I mean, oil and gas is either a blessing and it can be a curse. Remember in 2014, oil price went below zero. The oil markets crashed. So all those countries that have a very large oil sector, they suffered greatly, including Saudi Arabia. But I mean, those are valid points. We need to have more engineers. We need to have more technicians, technocrats. We need more educated people. That's very true, especially for Sabah. It has to be across the board. But more importantly, since we are talking about Sabah and they're going to have an election in 8 days, they need more, just like the rest of the country, they need more really manifold, multiplied, multiple times opportunities, economic opportunities to undertake new things and to do new things, to expand their activity and to create new wealth. The word is to create new wealth, and we have to keep creating new wealth. The population is expanding. It's about 4 million people now. So you have to provide employment opportunities, and more important than employment opportunities, you have to provide opportunities for people to pursue their entrepreneurial skills, to pursue business opportunities, because that's what creates employment. So I hope that in Sabah, whichever government comes into power after the 29th, they will look into these things.
Okay, on that note, I'm a policy guy. You guys make up your own mind. I hope that was a good conversation. Thank you so much, Syed.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, I'll see you all. Subscribe, like this episode, and let's help us get more episodes to more people. So thank you. See you all again.